Planning Commission meeting. This is for Wednesday, February 12th of 2020. We'll start with a roll call, please. Ms. Harmon?
Kelly. Here. Medina Atchison is excused. Sherry Budd.
Here.
Donald Boynton. Here. Jeff Jar. Here. Joan Franzoy is excused. Carol Thompson.
Here. Thank you very much. First item on tonight's agenda is our annual election of officers. So we'll start with the chairperson first, and I'll open the nominations.
I'd make a motion that Carol Thompson be appointed the chairperson.
I second that.
Okay, thank you. Other nominations? And we'll close the nominations, and we'll take a vote. If everyone who would like me to stay as the chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Rolling along to vice chair. Currently, Don Boynton is the vice chair. Are there nominations for the vice chair?
Madam Chair, I'd move to have Don Boynton be the vice chair.
Great. Ford?
Madam Chair, respectfully, the nominee's name is Donald Boynton Jr.
Great. Stand corrected.
I would like to second, support the motion, please.
Thank you. Other nominations? There being none, we'll close the nominations and we'll vote the motion. All in favor of Don Boynton Jr. staying as vice chair of the Planning Commission, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And congratulations to you. We are to secretary. The secretary for the Planning Commission has been Commissioner Brian Kelly. I'll open the nominations for secretary.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Boynton.
I nominate Mr. Brian Kelly as secretary for the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Support, Commissioner Budd. Any other nominations? And we'll close the nominations and we'll vote. All in favor of Brian Kelly remaining as secretary, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. I also want to add, although we haven't done the agenda approval, but we usually recognize a BZA rep when we do our election of officers. So I think there's been some discussion amongst our BZA rep and our alternate about how they might proceed for this year. You guys want to share with the rest of us what you're thinking?
Madam Chair,
Kelly?
I would actually like to step down as the primary representative of the Planning Commission and then step in as the alternate position for the upcoming year. And then I would nominate Mr. Donald Boynton Jr. to take over my position.
Great. You agree with that?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Do I need to do those as separate nominations? Are we not on? Can you hear me?
1, 2, test. Oh,
You can hear, okay.
On? Lean in.
do we have to be in a closer proximity?
All right, so we're assigning representation to the BZA from the Planning Commission plus the alternate. And I'm asking, Dan, do I have to do 2 nominations for that, or can we approve the nominee or the representative and the alternate together?
I don't think it would hurt to do 2 separate actions for that, so.
All
I'll
right,
do
so
2
we'll start
nominations.
first with a BZA rep from the Planning Commission, and we have a motion for Don Boynton Jr. and a support.
Yes, support.
Thank you, and support. Any other nominations? Then we'll vote to accept the motion for Don Boynton Jr. to come on as the rep for the BZA. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great. And we also need an alternate for the BZA, so is there a nomination for that?
I would nominate Brian Kelly as the alternate.
Great, thank you. Support?
Support.
Commissioner Boyd. And any other nominations? In that case, all in favor of Brian Kelly as the alternate for BZA, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So I think we've taken care of our housekeeping chores. Thanks, everyone, for taking on the responsibilities. We'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Commissioner Boynton, support. Commissioner Kelly, any changes or additions to the agenda? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the agenda is approved. We have minutes from the meeting of January 8th of 2020. Is there a motion to approve the January 8th minutes?
Support.
Commissioner Kelly, support Commissioner Boynton. Any corrections or changes to the minutes? All in favor of approving January 8th minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the January 8th minutes are approved. First item under new business for tonight's agenda is we annually are required to submit our annual report to the Township Board. That's part of the Zoning and Enabling Act. And we have a review of what's been taking place at the Planning Commission for the last year that staff has prepared. So this is our chance to review it and make comments before it gets sent forward to the board. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Director Powers. And can you walk us through how the report stands?
Chair. As the chair mentioned, this is a requirement of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act to consider submittal of an annual report of Planning Commission activities to the Township Board. We try to do that as reasonably possibly close to the first agenda of the year as we can. And so we are trying to keep on track with this goal. I'll walk through the format of this annual report in a fashion that I think I'd like to point to some slides on the screen. So I'll just mention that I'm following a similar format, which is fairly detailed to what has been done in the past by our past planning director, which calls out various activities, both in terms of actions that have been taken on specific projects and types of reviews that occurred in terms of public hearings. So if you don't mind, I will go over to the dais and point to some slides. What I want to show here is just visually to kind of recenter ourselves as a planning commission and look at some of the projects that have been approved over the last year. Before I get into that list, I will point out that there have been 15 public hearings in 2019 on various projects. There have also been items like the tree removal permits, which are part of some other site plans. The public participation plan, which is being engaged by the township to encourage public involvement in planning commission processes. Those are some items that I won't go over on these following slides, but just to keep in mind, they're important parts of what you do. Now, going through the presentation here, I'll switch the format of this slideshow. I think this should work. At the end of this slide deck, there's about 8 slides. I'll point out that there's a map that I can focus on that will allow us to kind of navigate around the township and look at some different projects, just to, if we have trouble remembering or want to talk more about specific projects over the last year, we can sort of use an interactive approach to doing so. But looking at the information here, there were 6 sites that had preliminary site plan approval in 2019. And as you'll recall, there is for every significant site plan review that the Planning Commission undertakes, there's typically a preliminary step, which is by that time there should be almost all of the detail and almost all of the site design work done with respect to how the site functions, how the parking spaces are laid out, how the building is designed, the setbacks, the landscaping. But there's also a second step further down the line, which is reflective of the final design of some stormwater details and road details. And so there's a preliminary site plan approval and a final site plan approval. So with respect to preliminary site plan approvals, there were 6 in 2019. You had the U.S. Signals Data Center at 9275 Haggerty Road, Project Sycamore at 9000 Haggerty Road, and the rendering for Project Sycamore is shown on this slide here, as was included with Planning Commission submittals. The Ashley Capitol Crossroads North Distribution Center, the River of Life Church Addition, the DTE Energy ASOC facility, and the AD Transport Addition. Again, I'll have a map that we can use to locate some of these projects at the end of these slides if you'd like to go through any of them. There were 4 projects that gained final site plan approval, which is that final planning commission step before we get into pre-construction and construction for projects. The Costco Depot expansion at 5860 Belleville Road, Project Sycamore at 9000 Haggerty Road, US Signals Data Center, which went on to get built, and here's a picture fairly fresh from February 17th of excuse me, not February 7th of the site. This is prior Friday before now. So this is the US Signals Data Center. There's just some final landscaping and restoration to be done, but this site is essentially built. The Ashley Capitol Crossroads North project. So those were your 4 final site plan approvals. With respect to special land uses, these are again land uses that are designated in a specific category within any given zoning district so that they're made sure to congeal to the surrounding fabric of the area that they're being sited within. And so there are specific standards that the Planning Commission has to review for special land use projects, and these projects also get reviewed by the Township Board. So the Ashley Capitol Crossroads North project is one of those, and the River of Life Addition was another one that had special land use approval in 2019. 9 site plan amendments. These amendments were primarily, with the exception of 2 of these 9 projects, these were to review residential elevation alterations in some of our pre-planned residential development projects. So the Townsend Park, Cobblestone Creek, and Country Walk projects all had new elevation models proposed that the Planning Commission acted on. There are also some special topics like the DTE lighting display on Haggerty Road, the Quirk Park splash pad right here south of Township Hall, and that may be the only non-residential site plan amendments that were reviewed in 2019. There were also some temporary land use approvals. The Planning Commission also reviews and approves temporary land uses. And I do call out that there were 5 5 as opposed to 6 as labeled in your packet, because one of these was, it came back for a second review. So there was the Real McCoy barbecue, Phantom Fireworks, TNT Fireworks, the parking of vehicles for Atchison Ford, and Percy temporary parking. So 5 temporary land use approvals in 2019. With this and one other correction, I would just ask for the flexibility to make the final corrections on the report before submitting it to the Board of Trustees. 8 rezoning recommendations. 3 of these related to, well, and actually, so there, 2 of these related to industrial related rezonings for the DTE Energy site and the Ashley Capitol site. I list DTE on here twice because there were 2 different meetings with the Planning Commission. But then the vast majority of these 8 rezoning recommendations were for residentially used lots on Martinsville or Savage Road that had been split zoned industrially. So in order to help free them up for sale and redevelopment and things like that, there was a initiative to have some sponsored rezonings. And so 6 of the rezonings on this slide refer to those sites. And this is primarily the section of land here. We're looking west toward Martinsville Road. This is kind of the stretch of property that was focused on for those rezonings. There were also text amendments. Here's another case where it came onto the agenda a couple of times for one of these, which was the lakefront lot setback requirements. So there are 4 listed on here, but it's actually 3 actual changes made. So the lakefront lot setback changes, the fence standards, and the senior housing development ordinance were all passed by both the Planning Commission and Township Board in 2019. So that's 3 zoning text amendments. And for any of those projects, if you want clarification or just to kind of orient yourself spatially, because I'm a spatial person and I think it can be helpful, I have a map here where we can, and that's not the right map, but this is the correct map. So what we have here, and this is a concept that I hope to continue developing, where we can see the status of different projects that are under construction in the township, and I'm zooming way out here, but On this screen, the black diamonds are essentially completed projects. Green diamonds are projects under construction. Yellow diamonds are projects that have received all their planning commission approvals but aren't breaking ground yet. And then red diamonds are the projects that have one more round of planning commission reviews or perhaps haven't been to planning commission yet. So from the projects that I showed on the last few slides, I'm glad to navigate to these. If you click on any of these points, we can see images of the site. And I'll try to find an example where, for example, the Subaru site, you can click on a pop-up and see a field photo that was taken recently. So this is a little bit techy, it's a little bit detailed, but if you want to get to know more about the status of a site as it lies right now, we can look at the minutes, the agenda for the approval of the site, and an image of the project if you want to pan around this map. But with that said, with a couple of the changes that were noted on the slides, I would like that you consider authorizing the approval of the report as amended for submittal to the Township Board at the next available board meeting.
Great, thanks very much, Director Powers. Do you have an idea or a sense yet of how we'll use the map as a tool, how it will be available to us?
I'm going to continue developing that with
Okay.
our staff. I'd like to refine it some more. This can be considered a sort of a illustrative tool for tonight's meeting, and then I'll hope to continue refining it. The big thing with something like this is to keep the data current and accurate.
Yeah.
And so, but I feel that is something that could be useful, if for nothing else, just for orienting whoever, whether it's staff, the planning commission, the board, residents, to know where a project is and when it got approved and how.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments from the commission? No? So the request before us is to, with the corrections on the counting of the items, going ahead and sending the annual report forward to the Township Board.
So moved.
Commissioner Boynton?
Support.
Motion, support. Commissioner Kelly, any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great, so great work. I did mention to Director Powers, I just did a quick, before I saw the map, a quick look at, and I found it interesting that pretty much our applications that we reviewed were divided between the south and the north side of the township. So, right, there's a lot of industrial, as we know, in the past year, because that's kind of been a hot place to do development, but we're seeing it spread across the township and in a variety of zoning areas too, so it's good. All right, next item is the planning meeting schedule. Do you want to just make any notations to us that you want us to know about for that? This is for 2020.
I will say that the meetings are still generally going to be on the second and fourth Wednesdays of each month. There are a couple of exceptions around the holiday season that I think you're accustomed to, but otherwise this is a pretty standard style of schedule. I do note that the offices are closed on November 11th, and we would probably try to work around that meeting date, but if necessary, we could probably keep it. So I'll just keep that in mind. That's one date that may be altered down the road, but everything else on the schedule should be typical.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments? Anyone in the audience, questions or comments? Do we need to accept this, or is this for our information?
Technically, if you could approve it, I think motion to approve it would be.
Great. Is there a motion?
Move.
I'll take Commissioner Kelly, support Commissioner Boynton. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thanks. All right. And under general discussion, under tonight's agenda, we have some upcoming training opportunities. So Director Powers, back to you.
Yeah, thank you again. So the township is interested in having its board and commission members trained, and I think many of you have taken advantage of the training opportunities over the years. I just want to point out that there are two training opportunities coming up here that are facilitated by the Michigan Association of Planning, or MAP. There's a Planning and Zoning Essentials Workshop on Thursday, March 19th in Jackson. There's also a Site Plan Review Workshop on Wednesday, March 18th in right nearby at the Taylor Wayne County Community College campus. So please reach out to me if you'd like to participate. We have the means to assist with training opportunities like that. And we'll try to keep other training opportunities on our radar throughout the year.
Excellent, thank you. Are there other items for general discussion from staff?
Nothing from me.
Planning commissioners, any general discussion? Audience? If there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Commissioner Boynton, support?
Support.
Commissioner Jar, all in favor say aye. Aye. And thank you, we're adjourned.